5 years ago, I took a trip to Hannibal, Missouri, and I toured the Mark Twain Museum. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's a wonderful place to stop and especially check out the museum when you're there. But while I was there, I picked up this coffee mug, and the coffee mug has a quote from Mark Twain on it that says, "Be good and you will be lonesome." Which kind of leads me into today's story perfectly. Have you ever heard of the Sinners Club in Battle Creek? Well, they used to meet at Fire Station number 2, right across from the sanitarium. And it has a fascinating history, a little bit of humor and mixed in with it, and this great little chapter from the past. So come along and join me.
When you cross a particular bridge and become passionate about discovering history, you not only find yourself studying it constantly, as I often do, but you also tend to gravitate towards others who have the same passion. So this story, I give credit to my friend 𝗧𝗹𝗲𝘀𝘁, the chairman of the board of the Battle Creek Regional History Museum, for introducing me to this quirky and sinful tale from the annals of Battle Creek's local history. Have you ever heard of the Sinners Club? That camaraderie of a membership that once resided in a clandestine location called Sinners Row. To fully understand the origins of this story, we must first discuss a man named Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. He was the driving force behind the Battle Creek Sanitarium and a designer and architect of the entire program for health betterment within its walls. His story is quite a long one and much greater than the context of this story. However, there are several books written about him, and you can also visit the Battle Creek Regional History Museum and acquire some books and articles about him through your contact with the museum. To summarize Dr. Kellogg, he was a pioneer in a lot of respects in the health industry, working for decades as a health activist and nutritionist with his work at the sanitarium. The sanitarium was also founded by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who had a guiding hand in much of the health programs. Patients came to the sanitarium from all over the world to partake in the health recovery programs. During their stay while at the facility, they were restricted to the dietary and spiritual regimen set forth by Dr. Kellogg. Smoking, for example, was prohibited at the sanitarium, as well as intoxicating liquors, meat, tea, and coffee. All of these items were taboo in the program. The sanitarium was founded in 1866. The original building burned in 1902, and following that, a new fire station deemed Fire Station number 2 was built, which was officially dedicated in 1903 at the corner of Manchester Street and Washington Avenue, across from the new sanitarium building. The land for this new station was presented to the city by the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital, which was located across the street at that time to ensure its own fire protection. Now, somewhere in the time frame of that history, with the proximity of Fire Station number 2, that we find patients that were beginning to sneak across the street to enjoy a cup of coffee and smoke a cigarette. As I mentioned before, these activities were strictly prohibited at the sanitarium. An article in the Battle Creek Inquirer dated August 8, 1943 says the Sinners Club officially started 1 year prior in August of 1942. This was in the final years of the sanitarium, and Percy Jones Army Hospital was formally dedicated on February 21st, 1943. It is said that when Dr. John Harvey Kellogg walked by and witnessed these patients sitting out in front of Fire Station number 2, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, that he had a somewhat startled and negative reaction to witnessing this. Now, there are two different accounts I found of what happened. The first account comes from an article dated July 31st, 1984, which says that the doctor strolled by and caught the patients and was heard muttering, "Sinners Row," which later they posted a sign as such that read Sinners Row outside of the fire department, which is depicted in this photo. And the Sinners Club was formed from that day forward. In a 1945 column entitled Today's Talk, written by George Matthew Adams, he describes his own time as a patient at the sanitarium over a 4-week period. I'm going to read you this short article because it's not only informative, but it also offers humorous accounts of the incident. This article was written 2 years after John Harvey Kellogg had passed away, and it reads, "For 4 weeks, I've been a so-called patient at the famous Battle Creek Sanitarium at Battle Creek, Michigan, the state in which I was born. It is to this great institution for half a century or so that people from all over the world have come to get their physical and spiritual machinery repaired. In a hospital, comforting place it is, founded by the late Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, who proved his principles of health by living to be 92 years of age. Smoking, intoxicating liquors, meat, tea, and coffee are taboo at the sanitarium as foes of the biologic life. There's no smoking allowed on the premises, which greatly adds to the uniqueness of the place. But there are those who must have their smoke and an occasional cup of coffee. There is a fire station just across the corner from the sanitarium, to which, for some years, a few smokers have migrated, decorating the bright red seats thereabout. One day, the great Dr. Kellogg passed by, noted some of his flock sitting there, and with his gentle ire a trifle ruffled, exclaimed, 'You're just a lot of sinners, that's what you are,' and passed on. Thus came into existence one of the most famous and unique clubs known in all the world, the No. 2 Fire Station Sinners Club of Battle Creek, Michigan, USA. To date, the club numbers about 500 members scattered all over the globe, international in scope. But you really don't have to sin to become a member. You just have to be companionable, for here you meet a group of the finest firemen this side of, well, what shall I say? Let's say heaven itself. Never have I enjoyed better companionship among men, for I proudly confess I am a full-fledged member of this unique organization. I learned that to become a fireman, you have to be endowed with rare intelligence, courage, and a quick-acting mind. I happily number each one of these Battle Creek firemen as my friends. I noted among the members of this Sinners Club, newspaper publishers, noted businessmen, a great governor's mother, a noted and honest political boss, and other distinguished addicts of companionship, with or without the specialized sin that initiated this club." And that was written by George Matthew Adams in 1945. So to become a member of this club, all you had to do was sign your name into the guest book at the fire station. Your name in the book constituted a membership, whether you smoked, had coffee, or took part in any of the offerings, which sometimes included steaks on the grill and other prohibited food. Membership numbers were over 500 at the time of this article. Here's a picture of a group of members sitting outside the fire station, and here's another of them sitting around inside the fire station. John Harvey Kellogg passed away in December of 1943. The club would continue on for many years. In this 1944 article in the Battle Creek Enquirer and News, there's mention of a Sinners Club Row Debating and Forensic Society reunion of the Big Four charter members of this group. The four men were Frank C. Powell of Jacksonville, Florida, Lowell C. Taylor of Memphis, Tennessee, William Love of Dallas, Texas, and Charles Ackerman, a Detroit banker. During World War II, as depicted in this article in 1943 in the Battle Creek Enquirer and News, the Sinners Club set up events called Sinners Have Feed, in which they would put out a spread of food to feed platoons of soldiers at the station for 2 days in a row. In 1986, an article was carried in the Battle Creek Shopper and News where some of the original members of the Sinners Club gathered at Fire Station No. 2 after the Adventist Hospital had been torn down. Here they are holding on to this sign. In the making of this video, I paid a visit to Fire Station No. 2 and found the current firemen there stationed were just as George Matthew Adams described in 1945. They were endowed with rare intelligence, courage, and a quick-acting mind. I also found them to be quite companionable and friendly, and some of the finest gentlemen I've met who work for our fine city. They were kind enough to give me a tour of the station and showed me the original lockers, the benches, showed me the photos on the walls. They also showed me the old loft where hay was once stored for the horses and dropped below as needed to feed them. I even inquired as to the whereabouts of the old Sinners Club guest book. And the fireman there thought it was in storage somewhere at fire station number 3, but he really wasn't too sure. But this place is very rich in history, and when you walk within its walls and you pay a visit yourself someday, you might want to listen very carefully while standing inside the fire station and see if you can hear the echoes of laughter and companionship from the distant past that was once shared within this space by the many members of the 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗀 Club from all over the world throughout the years.
Well, that's going to conclude today's journey through history, looking at the 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗀 Club and fire station number 2. If you liked today's video, please take a minute to hit the like button down there, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with others. And check out my podcast, Tales of Southwest Michigan's Past. I carry a lot of stories on there that I won't always get a chance to put into video form, so be sure to check that out. It's available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all kinds of other apps, so be sure to check it out on whatever podcast app you use. And until next time, thanks for coming along with me on this little journey through history.